Welcome to the Unhurried Living podcast. We're sharing leadership conversations to help you develop unhurried rhythms of rest and work. We're helping you overcome hurry and make time for what matters most. And now, enjoy today's episode. Hey friends, welcome to episode 246 of the podcast. My name's Alan, and I'm so glad you've joined me here. I'm hopeful that our time together will help you rediscover an unhurried way of life and leadership. Here at Unhurried Living, we care about the souls of leaders. We are interested in spiritual leadership that attends to the souls of others. This is at the heart of the calling of Jesus in our lives to follow him, to let him shepherd us well, and to learn how to join him in the care of others around us. Cultivating the spiritual growth of others has been at the heart of our work for more than 30 years. And this fall, we'll be launching a new training in leadership and soul care called PACE. Before we began Unhurried Living, we served as founding faculty for a 2-year spiritual formation and leadership development process. The books we've written grow out of that experience, and we hope that wisdom. And now we want to share what we've learned with you. Today, I'm having a conversation with my wife and partner, Jim, about this new training. I hope you'll catch how this might be the next step in your own growth, in caring well for your own soul, so that you can become the sort of leader who cares well for the souls of others. If you're a new listener, welcome to the podcast. If you find these episodes helpful, would you please follow, rate, and review? And be sure to share this podcast with your friends. Now, let me share a recent conversation I had with Jim about PACE, a certificate in leadership and soul care. On today's Unhurried Living podcast, it is my pleasure to have a conversation with my wife and partner in Unhurried Living, Jim Fadling. And we're talking about a new leadership and soul care training we'll be launching later this year. Welcome to the podcast, Jim.
Well, thank you so much from upstairs.
Yes, you are commuting from quite a distance. I usually have guests from all over the world, and now I have an upstairs neighbor.
That's right. I'm glad we can talk about this today. I'm really, really excited about what's coming up.
Well, you and I have been talking for a while about wanting to launch this training. We've had many what we call walk and talks, where we're having ideas and we're dreaming about this. But really, let's start our conversation by talking about the story of how it is that we've actually come to launch this new training. We're calling it PACE. That's the name of it, and we're saying that it's a certificate in leadership and soul care.
Yeah, well, of course, we're calling it new, but we are not new to this process.
Yeah.
PACE is new in that we are offering something in a new format that we haven't offered before, with different content and different, even somewhat of a different purpose than what we've offered before.
Yeah.
But we do have over 20 years of experience leading cohorts like this in the past.
Yeah.
And so, right?
That's true. Yeah. And so we're not new to this kind of training. Leading communities of leaders through a process of retreats is something we've done for a very long time.
Yeah.
And one of the distinctives that we really wanted to honor, this is in part in the spirit of mentors who've had a great impact on us, is the critical intersection between leadership and spirituality. These are not either ors. So in a sense, this training is not specifically or exclusively about spiritual direction, nor is it simply a leadership training. What it means to be is an integration of both of those. How do you live as a person deeply rooted with growing influence, so that both sides, the inner and the outer, the active and the prayerful, both get attention? There's integration, there's intersection, there's organic connection. That's where you and I have really sought to live in our own mentoring and caring for others.
Yeah, so it's very this is a personal venture, actually, because a part of our calling, and it is, every time I say that sentence out loud, our calling, it's a little odd because usually it's my calling or your calling. And I think there is a sense of that, but we really did sense that God called us to train leaders over the course of our lives. And we've shared that story before, but just know that we had a very specific moment in time where this call became very evident. And we've oriented ourselves around this vision from God of who we are and the work we have to do. And so this training really is a culmination of that in a way. It's a very focused way of leaning into that. So it is this intersection. And you guys know us well enough to know that we're not talking theoretically about anything. We share our actual lives with you. We talk about our exhaustion and our anxiety and our depression and how hard the process is. Well, we love walking alongside communities of leaders who are growing together. And this sense of calling is to pass on what we know. And so PACE is going to be that place in which we pass on what we have learned over how many years, Ellen? 35-ish years of living with God, living together, learning all the ways that God has invited us into our own ministry. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What is the process? What does your soul and your leadership have to do with each other? Well, we believe they're intricately connected. And many leaders forget, just like we do, about that connection. And that's when you end up on that path of burnout.
Yeah. I mean, what we don't want to do is to create very active leaders busy doing a lot of important things, but with a thinness in their souls. Nor do we want to create people who are very, committed to spiritual practices, but who aren't very involved in God's work in the world. Right. We want to help people be both deep-rooted and broad-branched, let's say. So let's pivot now and talk about the opportunity and the need that we think we'll be able to respond to with PACE.
Well, with PACE, we believe that we are going to help leaders gain wisdom, skills, tools that they need to coach and to mentor. And we would say soulfully and sustainably.
Yeah.
And so what that means, it's just putting another exclamation point on what you just said, Ellen. It's we're going to harp on this. Probably I can tell where we're headed already on this conversation, but we believe so much in the integration, not one or the other, not soul care or leadership, but soul care and leadership, and this beautiful integration and how both of them are enriched by the other. So we're going to come alongside you inside PACE as you journey on your path of wisdom. And we're going to give you the skills and the tools that we've learned so that you can do the same.
Yeah. And I think what we want to help leaders learn is how to confidently lead and coach people without themselves burning out in the process. This problem of burnout, this problem of leadership weariness is a big one today. I've shared in other episodes that I've never seen more pastors, for example, who've needed to take sabbaticals because of their deep, deep weariness. And I think we just need a way of leading that is not just sustainable. That's like the minimum. I want us to have a way of leading that grows out of thriving, that out of abundance, out of a fullness. And so we're calling this training PACE. And PACE isn't like an acronym for something, PACE. I'm a pastor. That would have made sense if I'd have done that. But that's not what we did. We just like the word PACE because it's related to our theme of unhurried living and unhurried leadership. But we do think that there is a pace of leading in the spirit of Jesus that God's inviting us to. So, for example, we think PACE will help leaders lead at the pace of grace, not from drivenness or not from duty, but from a sense of divine invitation, from a sense of God is graciously initiating. God is already at work. God is inviting. God comes first. God is first. God is working first. And then we enter into sort of the flow of what God's up to, and draw on God's generosity and God's energy and God's initiative. So the pace of grace is one of the paces that's important. Right alongside that is, we also think that leaders need to learn to lead at the pace of peace. Anxiety drives so much of what we do sometimes in leadership. So we're not anxious. We're not trying to control. We're learning to lead in the relaxed posture of Jesus. So the pace of grace, the pace of peace are two paces that I think of that we're going to help leaders enter into.
Yeah. And let me continue on with that. We do have a few more paces that we'd like to share. And before I move into the next three, I want to circle back around to the kinds of people that you and I meet with. They are tired. They are anxious, just like the culture at large. But people who lead, I mean, I work with women who are pastors. They are spiritual directors, coaches, entrepreneurs, teachers, therapists. These women are holding space for so many people in a critical time in our history when people at large are, hurting in all kinds of different ways. If you just turn on the news, you know what I'm talking about. All of these leaders that you and I are working with have deep needs for pacing.
Yes.
And so I love what you've already said, the pace of grace, the pace of peace. I'm going to add to that the pace of transformation.
Yes.
Right? There is a pace to change, to growth. Things don't happen fast. I know, Alan, you've said before, if you want to build a squash or grow a squash, what do you need? 3 months, 3 weeks? I don't know how long.
Not very long. Yeah.
If you're trying to grow an oak tree, it's a different thing. So the pace of transformation, to believe in that and then to cooperate with that. There's no steroids for spiritual growth, and there's no way around that good, slow path of holy change. So we had the pace of grace, the pace of peace, the pace of transformation. And I would like to add the pace of relationship.
Yeah.
Right? People, everything we do ultimately is about people, right? There's a lot of tasks and things. If we're writing a book, or if we're doing this or that event or whatever, that's a thing that you're managing. But ultimately, this book is going to get into the hands of a person.
Yeah.
This event is going to have some people at it. And so turning our gaze to the actual people, and hurry turns our work into something to manage. So, but when we slow down, we can learn that our work, whatever it might be, is mostly about people to care for.
Yeah, that's so good.
So one more, the pace of grace, the pace of peace, the pace of transformation, the pace of relationship. And then we'd like to add the pace of presence, right? The only moment we can actually live is right now. I can think about the past. I can think about the future, but I can't live in either one.
Yeah.
So the invitation is to live now. And all of what we've just listed so far, all of that takes practice, right?
It sure does.
It takes a while. It's all a process. And that's one of the things I'm really happy about inside of PACE is we are going to journey for a season together, focusing on these different paces and enlivening them within ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love those words too. I find them inviting. I think you and I have experienced these ways of talking about the pace of God, the pace of God's way, the pace of God's work as incredibly life-giving. Yeah. And as I said earlier, not just sustainable, like that's like you can keep doing it. Well, that's a threshold you could aim for. But I don't think Jesus said, I have come that you might just make it. I have come that you might be able to survive to the end of your life. I think Jesus came that we could have an abundant, rich, full, thriving, flourishing, sort of life. And actually good leadership grows out of that kind of life. Our little tagline from the beginning of Unhurried Living has been rest deeper and live fuller so that you can lead better. We're really going to lean into that in this PACE training. And I think that speaks to the fact that we're going to help leaders resist the temptation to lead in a way that ends up being draining or exhausting or overwhelming. For example, we're going to help leaders deepen their core values, really establish a vision for this way of living and therefore this way of leading that really cares for our own souls so that we can well care for the souls of those we influence and serve. And alongside that, we're going to help refresh these participants, those who join us for this training. We're going to help refresh your spiritual leadership toolkit. We'll help you become practiced in disciplines and in approaches to living and leading that will help deepen your roots and broaden your influence. And one of the ways we're sort of summarizing this training, I love this way of saying it. We really are going to help you become a leader who cares for the souls of others, beginning with your own. There's a profound connection between how you live as a leader, how well your soul is being cared for, and your capacity to care well for those who work alongside you, to work well for those you serve. So becoming a leader who cares for the souls of others, beginning with your own, is really an important priority for us. So now as we pivot a little further, I'm wondering, maybe you and I can talk about how might a listener know if this sort of training is right for them at this time?
Yeah. Well, I do have a list of ways that you might know that might help you. But I also think, just in general, before I step into that, if you've been tracking with us for any length of time in Unhurried Living, we're really inviting you to take this next step. We know it's a long process. It's paced and priced at similar other offerings like this. We understand.
Yeah.
But a lot of you, we have thousands of people on our email list. We know a lot of you have been tracking with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
And you've been wanting to lean in and you haven't known how. We're saying PACE is possibly a way for you to lean in next. But let us give you some ideas here for how you might know if it's right for you. You've been journeying with us and you have been wanting to engage your leadership with more intention and presence, like we've talked about.
Yeah.
But maybe you haven't been able to find a mentor to help guide the way. I hear that a lot from people. I don't have other people I can talk to like me who want to have these conversations. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't feel like you have the skills that you need to lead formationally. Well, we're gonna cover that. Yeah. You might also feel distracted or held back by all your current demands. And we get that. People are busy. There are a lot of responsibilities, but we're suggesting to maybe not let that hold you back. Maybe also you are aware of your need to prioritize the care of your own soul, but sometimes you feel unfocused or overwhelmed, which we've talked about. We understand where the state of the culture is right now.
Yeah.
You might also not believe that you have the time to devote to the practices and the training that we're talking about. Or you might struggle to experience the connection between your soul and your leadership. Sometimes that's a vision that's not often talked about, that the intersection that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe you want all these things, but distractions or any number of things might be holding you back. And another one would be you just don't know where to begin. So maybe I want this. And I heard everything you just said, Jem, and these are all struggles of mine, but I still don't know how to start. Well, we would like to meet you at that place. We will receive anyone who feels stuck or overwhelmed or distracted, because we've been there and we do still currently struggle just like every other human being. But over the decades, we've been walking with God in this, and we know that we can come alongside you as you make your way.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good maybe to talk about this idea that we're going to help leaders grow in their own soul care, but also in learning how to give spiritual leadership to others. So we think that PACE is going to help you gain a refreshed vision of what true spiritual leadership looks like. We think that it's a vision rooted in an abundant life, which is where transformation begins. PACE is going to help leaders learn the dynamics of healthy community because, frankly, nobody grows well in isolation. We were meant to live in a community. It is the body of Christ, not the finger of Christ. It's not a single body part, but it's a whole, and we're a part of it, and that's how we grow. And as I said before, there are just some classic spiritual practices that can help us grow. And it's just too easy to know about practices as a leader, but not have established them as a way or a rhythm of living. I've told the story before that when we first met mentors who put us on this path, I had read the books that Richard Foster and Dallas Willard was writing decades ago. I had taught lessons about it. I had given sermons about these things. The only thing I hadn't done was try them on in my own life. And that's so easy to do. We're always learning more and more good things, especially here in the West where we have resources coming out our ears. But we're going to help you grow in the practice of these spiritual practices. We all need, skills and strategies that help us cooperate with the work of the Spirit in us. And so that's part of what PACE is going to help us do.
Yeah. And some other ways we're going to help you grow is how to coach others with the heart of a spiritual director. Coaching is growing. It's expanding. Spiritual direction is expanding. We're going to help you be more coach-like, more spiritual director-like in your posture. So we're going to show you how to discern the work of God so you can cooperate with it. And we're going to show you how to walk alongside others so you can help them do the same. So we'll also help you plan events from a focused and contemplative heart. And that might sound a little impossible because planning events can sometimes be overwhelming and daunting.
Yes.
But is it possible to actually soulfully lean into what the event could be again? Because it's about people. We said that already. So we've been doing this for a really long time, and we want to share with you what we've learned. We're also going to lean into the lost art of reflection and discernment. These are so important for our growth and personally, but also as we lead others, helping them to learn how to be discerning people and reflective people. It has been said by experts that you don't really learn at the deepest level until you reflect on what you learned. Because you can journal about it, talk about it, even teach about it. But until you've reflected and pulled out all the nuggets of wisdom from what occurred, it's not complete. So we're going to dig into that reflection and discernment. And of course, when you're in a hurry, those just get left off because they don't seem critical, which I think might be a part of some of the things we're listing here, Alan. Don't you think? Some of the things we'll talk about are actually counterintuitive and seem to someone in a hurry not important.
Yeah, they don't seem as directly contributing to what I'm trying to do. This gets back to an old insight, the old Stephen Covey 7 Habits stuff where he distinguished between important and urgent. Hurry is all about attending to the urgent. It's letting whatever is screaming the loudest grab my attention. And disciplines like simple contemplation, just gazing at God, living in the practice of God's presence, practices like reflection, looking back to learn from what God's been doing and how I've been cooperating or not cooperating so well, or discernment, being able to look and see before I step and act. And so all of those, I think, are really going to be key practices and values in this training. So Jim, maybe kind of bring us back now to how might we describe the essence of this PACE training?
Yeah. So I think to talk about that, I'd like to just share some of our taglines so we can get them kind of embedded into our hearts. So you've already said this one. One of our essences is that we want you to become a leader who cares for the souls of others, beginning with your own. Right. And there's going to be a pacing to this. So we're going to move at the pace of grace. We're going to grow at the pace of transformation. And we are going to lead at the pace of Jesus.
Yeah.
I love all of these paces. I believe in them. Move at the pace of grace, grow at the pace of transformation, and then lead at the pace of Jesus. So we think PACE is unique in that we are not only going to teach you what to do, but in what spirit to do it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, again, in a hurry, the spirit, our posture gets left out in the scurry and the flurry. So we're going to see if we can bring an integration to what we're saying and who we are as we say it.
Yes.
So, and we, of course, believe PACE is a holistic training that begins within your own walk with God, and it unfolds into what you do and how you do it. That's the exciting part of the conversation, I think, for both of us. And then another thing that makes it unique is that we're going to help you integrate your own Christian spiritual formation with how you relate to others and how you lead individuals and groups. I suppose that's just another way of saying what I already said, but we really want to drill this home. There's this organic, beautiful, God-initiated relationship where we receive God's love, we take it in for ourselves, and then we extend it to others. And that happens as you live and relate and work. Right. So we practice everything together so that you can receive the support and the feedback you desire. So if any of you have ever been to any of our coaching groups or retreats, you understand that our teaching is very interactive. We don't just stand there and talk to people. We have whiteboards and we ask questions and you all get to pipe in. It's going to be like this. It's going to be a 21-month conversation. So excited about that.
Yeah, me too. And, as you're listening to this episode and as you're listening to Jim and I talk about this, I hope a couple things. One, I hope you feel drawn to exploring this further as a possibility in your own spiritual formation and your own leadership development. But even if this doesn't feel like the time for this training, I hope you're catching a sense of our vision and our hope for what spiritual leaders in our world could be like. That's really, in part, what we're wanting to get, what we're wanting to foster through providing this training later this year. So let me just really briefly list some of the skills or the strategies or the practices that we think will help leaders and that they'll gain through this PACE training. This could be an episode all by itself. Everything I'm about to list could be unpacked with a few paragraphs, because I think they're pregnant. And obviously we will unpack them through 21 months of PACE training, but we're going to help you practice the patterns of unhurried leadership. We're going to help you lead and teach for transformation, not just for information. That is a key skill. We're going to help you be more coach-like with the individuals and small groups that you work with and serve. We're going to teach you how to better embody a sense of presence to God, to yourself, to those you're with. We're going to also help you grow in that posture of holy listening. We're going to show you through some tools that both Jim and I have written about how to notice, discern, and respond to your own thoughts and feelings. It's been said, self-awareness is the other side of the coin of practicing the presence of God. And it's really a critical skill to grow in. We're going to help you craft and ask powerful formational questions. That's been one of the great tools we've learned in helping others grow. We're going to show you how to foster spiritual hospitality. How do you create a setting that encourages people to respond to the invitation of God to them? We're going to show you how to prepare yourself to lead spiritually. We can teach you, and there is training for leading strategically and organizationally and all of those different ways. We want to teach you how to lead from a deep-rooted soul. We'll teach you how to lead a retreat, a one-day or a multiple-day retreat for others. There are skills involved in doing that well. We think that helping you foster humility as a leadership essential is critical. Let's just put it this way. Proud leadership doesn't play well with grace.
Oof.
Humble leadership does. So if you're going to lead in the spirit of Jesus, you're going to want to learn how to lead in the spirit of the one who calls himself humble and gentle in heart. This is who he is, and this is what his students are like. So that's going to be a value. And then finally, we're going to help you develop relational, spiritual, and formational leadership meetings. How do you foster gatherings of leaders, maybe planning meetings or staff meetings or volunteer leader meetings? How do you do that in a way that helps deepen their life with God, even as they participate and cooperate with the work of God? So those are just some of the skills we think are going to be an important part of this training. And then maybe, Jim, why don't you get right down to the nuts and bolts, specifically, what will people coming to PACE experience?
Yeah, I love that list. When you just read it, I love what we're going to be offering. I love what we're going to be talking about together, what we're going to be working through together. So
me too.
But here's the nuts and bolts. Where is it? When is it? What's going on? Yeah. So it's 21 months. It starts September 2023, and we're going to have 5 in-person retreats in California. You'll be on the coastline, mostly in Malibu, maybe once or twice in Oceanside. You can look those up on the map and see how amazing they are. So when we get together for these 5 retreats, they will be 4 days and 3 nights together. It's an unhurried pace. The cost includes all of that lodging and food. So what is that? Three nights times 5, 15 nights.
Yeah.
20 days. How many meals? 9 times 45 meals.
Lots of food. You'll eat plenty.
So anyway, yeah, beautiful, beautiful California coastline. We're also going to have 4 whole group Zoom gatherings. One to introduce ourselves in that September before we have an October in-person retreat. And then we'll have 3 at the close that we're going to follow up on our final project, which we will offer. And then we'll have ways to follow up on that at the end. So 5 in-person retreats, 4 online Zooms. And then in between these gatherings, we're going to have smaller groups of Zoom meeting for coaching. Yeah. So those will be a little more up close and personal with Alan and I. So those are all included. And we're confident, of course, from our experience in this way of training, that you're going to gain for yourself some new friends for your spiritual leadership journey. The way people come together whenever we do any kind of retreat or training, there's this bonding that happens because we are all centered around Christ. We just see it happens over and over. So we're super happy that you're going to make some new friends. So again, our first Zoom meeting will be September 2023. Our first in-person retreat will be October 2023.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed maybe hearing some of this. Here's what I would say. I just think it would be so encouraging for you to live and lead more at the unhurried pace of Jesus. I know we're finding that to be a wonderful way to live and lead. And wouldn't it make a great difference to be able to grow in God's peaceful and joyful and compassionate way of relating to his work and to others? You know, whether caring for the souls of others is a major part of your actual job, or whether you simply want to be the kind of person who deepens your experience of caring for the souls of others in your everyday life and in the work you are currently doing. We really do think PACE is for you. And so we invite you to learn more about this training by doing one of a couple things. First, we'd invite you to visit our website to look at the details about PACE. You can go to unhurriedliving.com/PACE. There's lots of information there to help you decide if this training is right for you at this time. Again, that's unhurriedliving.com/PACE, PACE. Now, if this sounds like a fit to you, we would invite you to apply for this training, you can do so right on that page. There's a link to the application. Or if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@unhurriedliving.com. Our assistant will reach back to you. We will reach back to you. We will answer any questions you might have to discern whether this might be a great next step for you to take. So again, email us at info@unhurriedliving.com if you have questions. We really do think that we're at a unique time in our history that training like this is really necessary. And we don't think there's ever been a better time to give focused attention to your own spiritual life than now. And so that not just you'll have a good life, but so that you'll be able to do well serving and helping others. Tell us a little bit more about that invitation, Jim.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to leave you with a few more encouragements here as we wrap this up. Unhurried does not mean that we don't take action. We do. You are leaders. If you're listening to this, most all of you in some form or another in your life, you are an influence. You are a leader. So unhurried doesn't mean we don't take action. We do. We're integrating these, remember? So we're suggesting that you don't let more time pass before you begin to prioritize your own soul care and learn how to lead in the care of others' souls. You are probably already doing a version of this. We're suggesting that we can come alongside you as you hone these skills and deepen these skills and find others who want to walk on this journey with you. So it's time to step off the treadmill, stop succumbing to the time urgency of our culture, and make the important decision or refresh the important decision to learn to live from the inside out. We're going to learn together the gracious pace of Jesus and how to guide others into this life-giving way. So let us walk alongside you as you learn to live and lead in the fruitfully unhurried way of Jesus. This is, as we said at the beginning, a big part of our life calling. It is our honor, our privilege, and our joy. This kind of gathering, this kind of training, I know I'm speaking for Alan, is just one of our absolute favorite things to do, to journey like this together. So we welcome you to apply, and we hope to see many of you in PACE.
Yeah. So again, if you want to learn more, we invite you to visit our website at unhurriedliving.com/PACE. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at info@unhurriedliving.com. It would be such a joy for Jim and I if you were able to join us and we were able to take this journey together, this 21-month journey of growing as someone who cares well for our souls for the sake of others. So anyway, Jim, thanks for being my guest on the podcast. And I'm so glad we've had a chance to talk about PACE and share it with our listeners.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as I did. In the next couple of episodes, we'll be talking with authors Paul Angoni and Glenn Packiam. I can't wait to share those with you. Again, Jim and I are inviting you to learn more about PACE by either visiting unhurriedliving.com/PACE, where you can find a lot of good information to help you decide if this training is right for you. Again, unhurriedliving.com/PACE. If it sounds like a fit, feel free to apply on that page. There's a link. Or you can reach out to us at info@unhurriedliving.com if you have any questions. Feel free to email us at info@unhurriedliving.com. We'd love to have you as part of this first training community. Thanks again for listening. You've been listening to the Unhurried Living podcast. Join us next time to learn more about following the genius of Jesus' unhurried way of life and leadership.